Malik Beasley was cleared federally by anything going on in the gambling investigation, but when will he make his return back to the basketball court? We're going to talk about that today. We're also going to talk about the Warriors' rumored pursuit of LeBron James this past offseason, and will the Pels actually move Trey Murphy III? We're going to talk about all that and more on today's Locked On NBA Game Night.
When that final buzzer rings, you know it's time for Locked On NBA Game Night. All the post-game reactions to every game across the league, every single night, with insights only the hosts at Locked On can provide. It's the true NBA fans' one stop for all the action. Every game, every night. It's Locked On NBA Game Night. Tipping off now.
Thank you for tuning in to Locked On NBA Game Night, where it's every game, every night. I'm Haize, one of the hosts of Locked On Bulls, and I'm joined today by Gavin, the host of Locked On Knicks. How you doing, Gavin?
Doing good, man. Really excited to talk to you. Maybe talk a little Malik Beasley to the Knicks potential. I think that's the best team that's been brought up in regards to one he could potentially join. I'm excited to get into all of it.
Of course, you would think that the Knicks are one of the best teams he could join.
Dude, look at the list. It's objective. I mean, it's the Pistons who they beat, the Bulls, the Pelicans, the Kings, the Wizards. I think I'm being fair here, but we'll talk about it.
Yeah, we'll definitely talk about it. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Well, let's jump right into the top segment. So Malik Beasley was cleared today, at least federally. We don't know if the NBA is going to do anything. Nothing's come out of that yet. But he was slated or rumored to be getting a 3-year, $42 million contract before all this happened with Detroit. That money's no longer there for him anymore. Even if Detroit wanted to go back to the table, I believe the most they can offer right now is $7.2 million. And so reportedly, your Knicks do have an interest, as well as the Pacers as well. What do you think about these teams that are rumored to have some interest in Malik Beasley? Which one makes the most sense for him, or do you think he's going to end up just going back to the Pistons?
I mean, I think the Pistons probably still make the most sense for him. Obviously, they took some measures to replace his production, bringing Karis LeVert, bringing in Duncan Robinson, who seemed like kind of the obvious maybe one-for-one replacement for Malik Beasley. I kind of think Malik Beasley might be better than those guys. Detroit was just an exceptionally good team once Jaden Ivey went down last year. I'm trying to pull up. I had their record. They were top 10 in net rating. I think they were 5th best defense, 9th best offense in the NBA. They were just like flat out one of the better teams in the league, with Malik Beasley playing a major role. Beasley last year, shot over 41% from three on 9 3-point attempts per game. Only other players to do that in NBA history: Steph Curry 6 different times, Klay Thompson once. Like, he was just essential for them. And it was revelatory, like the extent to which that changed Cade Cunningham's game and his effectiveness, having legit shooting around him. And it's one of those things in the modern NBA, you could never have enough. And if I were the Pistons, I think Beasley would, I know he was 2nd and 6th man of the year last year. I think he slots in really well to that starting lineup, right? If you're going to look at his Cade, Beasley, Asar, Tobias Harris, Jalen Duren, that group, limited sample size, just 174 possessions, but had a plus 12.4 net rating last year. If you want to bring him off the bench, that's a lot of firepower between him, Ivy, LeVert, potentially, assuming you start Duncan and you start Thompson. Like, that is a really deep team with a lot of optionality. They would have a legit 10-man rotation with Beasley back. Career year there. I don't know why he would go away from that. I do think the Knicks are interesting. They could potentially offer him a starting role just for only $3 million, which for a guy who took like a discount last year, that'd be painful, obviously.
It would definitely be painful. I mean, it's unfortunate, and that's the thing that sucks. This happens a year after he was 2nd 6th man of the year voting. And while he had a historic shooting night last night, one of the things that I dug into, like Malik Beasley's numbers, is that he's always been a really good shooter. Surprisingly enough, like on contested shots, he has an amazing field goal percentage as well. That's higher up there. And so, like, this is a guy that can help any team right away. So it's not what he has to offer a team. He's going to help a team. Of course, he's probably not going to hit that height of what he did last season. That's perfectly fine. But as a shooter, as a scorer, he can definitely help some teams out there. I would love to see him go back to the Pistons, with what they added in Karis LeVert, getting Jaden Ivey back. If they, also Duncan Robinson, like you said, and pointed out that replaces some of Malik Beasley's production. But like, to have those guys back, and we know, especially in the NBA, how having productive wings really is important, especially in the playoffs. I would love to see that. I think the Pistons are one of the up-and-coming teams. I don't know about you, and no knock on the Knicks, but I think the Pistons are going to be a top 4 seed in the East easily this year.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I do. I'll reiterate my take. I do think the Knicks are clearly the best team on the list. And if his goal is winning a championship next year, that would be a game-changing signing for a Knicks team that really missed Dante DiVincenzo last year. Nominally, like some high-level shooting across the roster, and yet they didn't really have that guy that consistently like gave deep spacing, right? Both OG Anunoby and Mikal Bridges are more comfortable in the corners, more comfortable like when they're above the arc as total line 3-point shooters. Mikal Bridges like had some very weird form issues last year and in turn like really struggled more than he ever has in his career from above the break. Like to reincorporate a guy that could shoot from 30 plus feet. And granted, maybe the model isn't there anymore because in Tom Thibodeau's offense, Dante DiVincenzo had a career year. We'd have to see if Mike Brown could replicate that. But the Knicks desperately need shooting in their starting lineup. I'm personally a big advocate of just going ahead and playing Deuce McBride in that spot. He was the one guy on the Knicks in all 5 of their in all 5 of their best lineups last season. Beasley not nearly as good defensively, but even though Deuce is a great shooter, like Beasley is obviously in just a different category. That would be the Knicks really leading at the offense. I don't know if you could start that in the playoffs because Beasley would just be another third blaring target for defenses with Jalen Brunson and Karl Anthony Towns already on the floor. But man, offensively, Haize, like I think that would potentially statistically be the best offense in NBA history. If you're looking at a group of Brunson, Beasley, Anunoby, Bridges, Cat, like just 5 out, incredible shooting across the board. And the Knicks were operating at near record paces last year without starting Beasley in the first half of the season or without starting a 5th shooter. They had Josh Hart out there. So I'd be really interested in what that could look like. Was there one other team on the list that really interested you? Obviously your Bulls, like the tempo they were playing at post All-Star break last year. I think that would be an incredible amount of fun. I think the Pacers would empower him. He was taking 9 threes a game last year. Maybe he'd be shooting 12 with them. That would be fun in what's going to be somewhat of a lost season for Indiana. But him and Andrew Nembhard, that's an intriguing backcourt. I think the Pelicans could really use some shooting. There's a bunch of teams on that list where you can talk yourself into the fit of another great shooter.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the things about Malik Beasley is that he can really fit in just about any team, and that is the special part of it. I mean, the Bulls, like for my Bulls, I just don't know if we have the rotation for him now. Like we already got Kobe, we got Isaac Okoro, we got Ayo Dosunmu coming back, of course Kobe White and like Kevin Huerter. I mean, I wouldn't mind replacing him with Kevin Huerter, but we also have 15 guaranteed contracts, so I don't know how they're expecting the Bulls to try to make a move for Malik Beasley unless they're just going to absorb somebody's contract, which Jerry Reinsdorf is notoriously cheap, so I doubt that's going to happen. But I would say I do like the fit of the Knicks. I think that's really good there. I wouldn't mind, and I know they're not one of the rumored teams, but honestly, I wouldn't mind him going back to the Wolves. Like I think there's a spot on him that he could fit very well on the Wolves. They're not one of the rumored teams, so I want to be clear on that. But like the fit on the Wolves really does intrigue me. I don't want to see him go to the Pels only because I don't know what the Pels have going on. I want them to figure that out before I personally want to see anybody go to the Pels. They got a lot that they need to figure out on that roster. So, we'll see. Let me ask you this. I know that the Knicks haven't had the most active trade deadline. I mean, most active offseason as far as signing and transactions, adding Mike Brown. Would getting Malik Beasley make you feel, well, you already said they may have one of the best historic offense. Like, how much more confidence will that give you in what the Knicks are going to be, that they can be better than what they were last year?
Yeah, so I think they're already on that trajectory. Obviously, I've talked about enough on this podcast. I was a fan of them moving on from Tom Thibodeau. I think Jordan Clarkson, Gershon Yabusele as bargain bin signings both like fill real needs. Clarkson as a off the dribble 3-point shooter, creator, someone who can actually drive, draw a crowd, spray it out. The Knicks were desperately missing that off their bench. Got a little bit of it from Campaign, but he's clearly a better version of that. Yabusele, 42% on above the break threes, can attack a closeout, good in transition. Very excited for him. I think Beasley would just be another step in the right direction. The main names that have kind of been buoyed about for the Knicks for that final spot in the rotation have been Malcolm Brogdon, Landry Shamet, Ben Simmons. This might surprise you, Haize. I'm not incredibly excited about Ben Simmons, who was not really good for the Clippers last year, or at least didn't have a super positive impact in terms of their rating when he was on the court. Fell out of the rotation in the playoffs. Shamet is awesome, but Beasley is just a far better version of him. Brogdon might still be my personal favorite out of that group, but Beasley's a much surer thing from a health perspective. I think he is pretty clearly the best option out of that group and would just add an element to their offense, either as a starter or off the bench that, again, unless they really want to lean into Deuce McBride, they don't really have that movement three-point shooter. And we saw the potential, again, with Dante DiVincenzo of what that looks like next to Jalen Brunson. So that would give me a little bit more confident when you look at how deep the Thunder are, look at how deep the Cavs are, the Wolves. I mean, even the Nuggets have like a really solid 9. I think the Knicks, like first 4 guys off the bench are as good as any team in the league, but that deep depth 10 through 15 is lacking right now. This would give them 10 like really high level rotation players, which only a couple teams in the NBA could say. So I think it would further solidify them as an NBA title contender. I don't think it makes or breaks their season just because they do have solid bench depth. They had great health luck last year though. So and Beasley would insulate against that pivoting in any way.
I love that. I love that. The dark horse team, just to throw out here before we end this segment, is that if the Warriors ever do pull a trigger on anything and they do end up going using a trade with Buddy Hield, pivoting Malik Beasley could be one for them there.
Yeah, I mean, Hield had awesome stretches for them. I mean, you remember that? What was it against, like Minnesota, or was it Game 7 against the Rockets where Hield just had 20 points in the first half? Like Beasley as an upgraded version of that, and him like JB Bickerstaff did, I think, underrated job like getting him open. There was a stat in the ESPN article that like he got the most points, or sorry, he made 248 catch and shoot threes. That was the most by a player in a season since player tracking began in 2013-14 per Genius IQ. I look at the catch and shoots, like, which again, credit to Bickerstaff. The Warriors, like him shooting movement threes in that system, like scary hours. That would be terrifying for the rest of the NBA.
For sure. Well, next up, we're going to be discussing the Golden State Warriors in the pursuit of another player, and that's LeBron James. But first, we got to get to the message from Game Time. Have you ever decided the last minute to head to a ball game with friends or family? Maybe it's game day and you suddenly realize you want to be in the stands. That's exactly where Game Time comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last minute tickets without the stress. With the money you save on tickets, you can splurge on foods, drinks, merch, and even invite a bigger group to come with you. Game Time makes it all possible. Game Time makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app actually drop the closer you get to the first pitch, and they got incredible last-minute deals, clear seat views, and the lowest price guarantee that takes the worry out of buying. Tired of endless scrolling to find the great deals? Game Time Zone picks the best seats in your section for you. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Again, create an account and redeem code, that's LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. More Game Time coming up next. All right. So, getting into the next topic, Gavin, Golden State Warriors. Apparently, according to Jake Fisher, and by the way, anybody who does any type of content, it's always a great time when Jake Fisher releases his article because he gives you things and great things to talk about. But LeBron James, apparently the Golden State Warriors have called the Los Angeles Lakers multiple times in an effort to explore a possible trade scenario with the Lakers this week. And now that's not a small feat with LeBron's huge contract. Fisher says this: I'm told that the Warriors have called the Lakers on multiple occasions over the past 18 months to see whether there's any trade pathway to pairing James with Steph Curry, who roughly a year ago at this time was teaming with LeBron for the United States senior men's national team on its run to a gold medal at the Paris Olympics. The Golden State Warriors, now after they got Jimmy, I thought that they were going to kind of focus on that. Them making multiple calls to try to get LeBron James. How do you feel about that, Gavin?
I think it's a lot of nothing. Maybe that's anti the content you were talking about with Jake Fisher, but we've heard this, right? I mean, 2024 trade deadline, like the Lakers and Jeannie Buss deferred to LeBron James and essentially asked him, do you want to go there? And he didn't want to go there. And look, maybe I think it was mentioned in the article, like he had an incredible time in Paris, right? Hanging with Steph Curry, hanging with Steve Kerr. Maybe that slightly shifted his opinion on it. Obviously, things have been icy with the Lakers this offseason. It was not so icy that he chose to pass up $52 million, but icy enough that there's been some subtweeting and the like. But I don't know, man. I think at this point in his career, especially, maybe Bronny could get roped into trade, but with Bronny on the team, I would be really surprised this late in the offseason if LeBron ultimately gets dealt. Like, it feels like the Warriors have been gunning for this for a year and a half now and nothing's happened. Like, I don't really know what's changed, unless maybe LeBron's view that since they got Jimmy Butler, they're more likely to win a championship. the Warriors' greatest issue right now, to me at least, is not star power. It's depth. And they're going to add Al Horford. They're likely going to add DeAnthony Melton. We were talking about maybe there's a world where they pivot back on someone like Malik Beasley, but this is not a complete roster. And especially if you move on from Draymond Green, right? The Warriors were exceptional post All-Star breaks, third in the NBA in net rating, 20-7 record. They were led by their defense more than anything else, 109 defensive rating after the All-Star break. That was the best mark in the entire NBA. And to me, that's partially a Jimmy Butler number. It's mostly a Draymond Green number. And I don't really think there's any plausible configuration of Warriors contracts where you somehow keep Draymond Green, Jimmy Butler, and Steph Curry in a LeBron James trade. I think you'd just be moving the piece around in the chessboard. Yes, obviously LeBron is a better player than Draymond Green, but for what the Warriors need, I don't think even if they pulled this off, I don't think it meaningfully changes their trajectory as a championship contender. And in turn, I don't really know why LeBron would want to do it.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I think and it's funny that we heard that KD didn't want to be traded with a potential trade to the Golden State Warriors last year. LeBron also I think the Warriors have settled on a core that makes sense for where they are right now. Having Dre, having Jimmy, having Steph, all the contracts kind of overlapping at the same time, having Steve Kerr. I've been calling him. I don't know how much you watch the morning version of Locked On NBA, but I say it's their wild hog season. It reminds me of that movie. All the old guys got their bikes, and that's what this season is for the Golden State Warriors. Them and the Clippers are two of the oldest teams in the NBA. I think they're the two oldest teams in the NBA, but they're still a really talented team. And I do think that their toughness and they're going to be well coached, and I think there's going to be balance there. Pursuit of LeBron James doesn't need to happen at this point. Just keep adding. They got to figure out what's going on with Jonathan Kuminga. Keep figuring out that roster because reportedly they want to add Al Horford. He's balancing that or thinking about retirement. But I like the Warriors team where it is. I think they're going to be a fun team. I don't think they're a championship level team, but I do think they're going to be a really fun team and could make some noise in the playoffs. If it wasn't for Steph going down, they could have very well won that series in the playoffs. So they still have it, and Steph has a lot left in the tank. And as long as Steph is playing at this level, the Warriors need to keep trying to build a team that makes sense. The pursuit of LeBron James, if he wants to join there, let it happen next year in the offseason. He's going to be an unrestricted free agent. Let him make his decision there. Trying to trade for a $52 million contract just does not make sense for anybody with where LeBron is. And no knock on LeBron. LeBron's still one of the best players in the NBA, can still get it done. The efficiency has dropped some. The defensive ability has dropped some. But he's still a great player. But it's just at this point, I don't see the purpose of trying to trade for LeBron for the Warriors personally.
Yeah, I think there's two sides to it. Zach Lowe's been really good talking about it, right? There's nothing wrong with being a very good team in the West, and Steph Curry has four championships. I think that 2022 one was the cherry on top, right? Proving once again, just like he did in 2016. And if that one came with a little asterisk because Kevin Love and Kyrie Irving were hurt in 2022, right? Benefited from some injuries at West, but went against a fully healthy Celtics team, somewhat, I don't want to say undermanned Warriors roster, but the second best player on that team might have been Andrew Wiggins, might have been Draymond Green, might have been Jordan Poole on the right night. Steph dragged the team to a championship. And I think that cemented his legacy as a guy who I think the perception of him was always that he would slightly underperform in the finals, though everyone who isn't LeBron James or Giannis or Jokic tends to slightly underperform in the finals. 2022, rubber stamp Steph, where there's no more questions there. And the rest is gravy for him. And you could look at it from that perspective. You could also look at it from the perspective of the fact that Steph was still that good in 2022. So just the Warriors trying this two timeline approach let him down in some real ways, right? Blowing the James Wiseman pick. Obviously, Jonathan Kuminga has not been a disaster in terms of how good he is as a player. It's been a disaster as a fit. The relationship is a disaster. We still don't have a resolution on that. Seems like the most likely scenario is that he takes a qualifying offer. The Warriors now, they have a bunch of picks they can move, right? I think they have 4 tradable first-round picks. So maybe it sounds weird to say aim higher than potentially the greatest player of all time on LeBron James, but is there any world where you could package all that for a younger star that makes sense on this team and insulates their depth, where it's a pick-heavy trade that they don't have to give up their depth? Because you trade your depth for LeBron, I think that is asking for trouble. One of those guys turns an ankle, that is your season. Either way, I don't think there's a possible permutation here where this ends up in a championship caliber team. I think they are decisively a step below that, despite how good, to your point, they looked in the playoffs, especially those first couple of games when Steph was healthy, and the fact that they played one of the 3 or 4 best teams in the league after getting Jimmy Butler. I just don't see them surviving 4 rounds with their current depth issues. but LeBron, like, I guess given all that, like, it doesn't really add up to me. Someone who might add up, Trey Murphy, who I know we're going to talk about in just a sec.
Definitely going to be talking about Trey Murphy coming up next because reportedly, well, it's one of those things that are talking about. I don't know if it's going to happen. We'll talk about that up next, right after this. All right, Gavin, last topic of the day before we get out of here. Trey Murphy III, the Pels. There's been a lot of talk about what the Pels are going to do with their roster. I know when you brought up the Pelicans for Malik Beasley, one of the things I said, they got a lot of things to figure out. They got some talent on this roster. Like, you look at the Pelicans roster, and they definitely have a roster that you could see teams being interested in their pieces. Jake Fisher, again, reported today that sources say that the Warriors have a strong affinity for Murphy and have made outreach to New Orleans as recently as this summer. You're going to also say that the Spurs also have an interest in Trey Murphy, which as many wings as they have, their young wings, it's interesting to hear that. What do you think about those two teams, and why or why not should the Pels even be looking to move Trey Murphy?
So I want to caveat this with the Pelicans made probably the worst trade of the offseason, unless I'm forgetting an obvious one. When they moved up for Derek Queen, traded away their 2026 first round pick. And in turn, there's a lot of pressure on a team that I think most people expect to be roughly the third or fourth worst team in the Western Conference. And seemingly Haize, tell me if this is unfair. This feels like the sixth straight year where their roster just makes no sense. And of course, some of that is like they're nominally built around Zion Williamson, and you don't really expect Zion to play more than 30 or 40 games in a season. And it's very hard to, one, like, rely on a guy like that. Two, to even know if you want to rely on a guy like that, what do you need around him? Because we've just never got enough of a sample size to be like he's a very like weird, unique basketball player, right? Is like this burly 6'6" monster of an athlete. Like, how do you construct a team around that guy if he's not that good defensively, if he's not a shooter, and he's just like the best athlete on planet Earth? Like, it is a real challenge if you're the Pelicans front office, and yet there's still this incredible pressure for them to win. And in turn, trading away Trey Murphy doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. And I wonder again if it feels like every single offseason, a guy that a team doesn't actually want to trade, a report comes up being like, the Warriors have always liked Giannis. No one else has realized this guy is really good at basketball. They'd be interested in giving up maybe a first round pick and Brandon Pajemski for him. And then there's nothing to it. So I'm curious if there's more here. The Spurs make sense. The Warriors actually do have first round picks to move now. I just don't know why, if you're the Pelicans, like I'll let you talk about the fit on those two teams, would be moving on from him for future draft equity when they traded away future draft equity and it was unprotected, right? Like they do not want to give the Hawks a top 4 pick in a year where like the top 3 guys are all looking like perennial all-stars. So I don't know. I just don't know what the Pelicans are thinking if they are legitimately shopping Trey Murphy for like a picks forward package.
It's just it seems to me like Trey, especially with the season that he had last year. I know he had injuries and things like that, but like that's not the player that you have so many other players that make sense to move off this roster before you get to try to move Trey Murphy. Like that's the part that doesn't make sense to me. I get it if you want to get draft capital, but to me, you got other players that you should be looking to do that with rather than Trey Murphy. Like, this is a player that I'm not going to say like he's going to like all of a sudden turn into a star or anything, but he's been productive. He's been a really good scorer. It's just the health aspect of it. But let's talk about it. Like, I don't think anybody on the Pelicans last year played over 56 games. Like, it's health all up and problems all up and down that roster for the most part. So they got that part to figure out. And I think Messi actually played over 56 games with him as a rookie. But it's just they got a lot of things to figure out. I love Trey. I do think he can fit on a lot of teams. I do think the Warriors make sense of trying to go after anybody because they're just trying to find talent to put on that team around Steph. So that makes sense. The Spurs, like, I guess I can see the fit with the Spurs. And they have a number of players that they can trade in the package like that as well. It could make some sense, maybe a Devin Vassell, something like that. But I also think the Spurs should probably wait for a bigger fish before they put the chips in on their younger players too, personally.
Yeah, I guess you could go either way, right? Like, I do think the Spurs were wise to hold off on Kevin Durant this offseason. If like a lot of teams, it seems like are reticent to move on from future picks in a world where Giannis could become available in the next 12 months. But Giannis, like, seemingly, I don't know how the Bucks do the wave and stretch Damian Lillard move and bring in Miles Turner if they didn't get some kind of under the table commitment from Giannis, because it does, like, it always comes back to that Giannis ultimately seems like he just wants to be in Milwaukee. Who knows? Maybe a terrible start next year changes that. But like, we've had multiple off seasons now where he's flirted with the idea of leaving, and he ultimately doesn't leave. And that's not to say, like, if you're the Spurs and you're looking at this and you're saying, all right, Giannis isn't available, so we have to go off Trey Murphy, right? To your point, the Spurs have an immense amount of flexibility. I just think in a world where, again, I think this is somewhat dumb if they are, but in a world where the Pelicans are like actively shopping Trey Murphy, it's not like you have to give up all your future draft equity to get him. And the good news for the Spurs, right? You have pretty much all your own first round picks, right? They have 6 of their next 7 first round picks available. They have swap rights with Atlanta in 2026, an unprotected pick from the Hawks in 2027, swap rights in Boston, top 1 protected 2028, swap rights from either Dallas or Minnesota, more favorable those two in 2030, swap rights with Sacramento in 2031, and just like a whole bunch of young pieces, some of them like excessive. Like there's even an argument they can move on from Castle. I wouldn't do that personally, but they could move on from him after going and getting Dylan Harper and just having a glut of non-shooting guards. They could even move on from De'Aaron Fox like in a couple months if they so chose to. I think Murphy would be a fantastic fit for them. I think he is a pretty clear-cut, just like 20% better version of what Devin Vassell brings to the table for them. We didn't even like go over the stats on Murphy, but he's obviously coming off a career year, right? 21, 5, 3.5. And you take that with a grain of salt because the Pelicans didn't really have anyone else. What impressed me that like early in his career, like he's just been hyper efficient in terms of points per shot attempt, 96th percentile in 22-23, 84th percentile in 23-24. Last year with the volume really accelerating, still 78th percentile efficiency. So he's shown you he can scale up. I really like him as like the 4th best player, 3rd best player on a really good team. Him, Fox, and Wemby together make a lot of sense. And I think the Spurs are just desperate at this point for more shooting. And we know that's something that Trey Murphy can do without sacrificing a whole lot defensively. So I think he makes a lot of sense. What do you think about the fit on the Warriors? Because that's, as I said last segment, that's almost a more interesting option to me than going and getting LeBron and having someone that could potentially have a little bit of longevity there beyond just the Steph era.
Yeah, I mean, going to the Warriors, I think fits with what they are trying to do now. I think Trey Murphy can instantly help them, no doubt about that. It does give them a piece towards the future as well, at least further out. I don't know how concerned the Warriors are about the future. Like, it's almost like every young player, like just the way that they've treated Jonathan Kuminga makes me question on like how much they really value the future of this franchise after Steph. It almost feels like after Steph goes, they're just gonna, I don't know, be a crater. I have no idea. Just stack picks at that point, but I definitely think he fits. I think he could play really well. I don't know if you'd keep Pods, but I think instantly he replaces Pods in that starting lineup. He's much better than there. He can replace Buddy Hield's production as well. I think he can fit with Jimmy Butler also, especially with Jimmy creating off drives like he likes to do. I think the fit on the court is really nice there. And we'll give, like you said, it will give them something to at least look forward to the future. I don't know how much that really is a concern of that franchise right now. Maybe that's just me cutting them short.
Yeah, I guess I'm almost just even like I think the future's a bonus. I'm looking at the present. Like, how many guys on that team do you think are plus players in their rotation once you get to like conference finals, NBA finals level basketball? Again, like I don't think there is a move for them to really get to that point, in my opinion. But nominally, if that's the goal for them, right? You're saying Steph Curry obviously belongs on any basketball court in the world. Jimmy Butler, even though he didn't look as good, like once Steph went down, he had to be a number 1 option. Belongs in any basketball court in the world. Draymond Green is still that guy. I think those are the only 3 guys on the roster. Like, is there one other guy on this team that would have played for Oklahoma City or Indiana in the NBA Finals? Maybe Podziemski, maybe Kuminga, like could have been a bench piece for either of those teams. But there's not really like they just need more good basketball players, and Trey Murphy like checks that box in a big way for me.
Yeah, and he also like would then push somebody else to like they need depth too. Like depth is one thing that we saw throughout the last playoff runs. Depth became more and more important as the playoff series went on, and so he would help with that also. So I mean, Trey Murphy helps a lot with them. I honestly probably would really like him on that team. I don't know what the Pels are doing, man. I have no idea where the Pels are with anything. But the Warriors are a team that if they were to get somebody like Trey Murphy, where I said before that I don't necessarily see them as a finals contender, not to say that Trey Murphy would make them that, but it would increase their chances quite a bit, to be 100% honest with you, especially for those minutes, like you said, where Steph is off the court. Trey Murphy could help with that a lot.
Yeah. Do you see like another dark horse team out there that could go trade for him? Like, I haven't really looked into the cap mechanics of it, but he would be like, if there was some way you could turn Rui and stuff into him, like for the Lakers, again, like I think that's hard to do with where the Lakers are at financially. The Grizzlies like could use a wing post Desmond Bane. The Mavs seemingly want to get off their glut of bigs, and maybe they could like combine like PJ Washington and Gafford and a first round pick out east. Like the Bucks, who we just mentioned, like they're always under pressure to improve. They could throw some contracts together. Again, I don't really know if they have the picks to make that happen. I would be, the Heat always seem to want to go get someone else. Like I do think if he's legitimately available, even if the Warriors and Spurs are the first two teams out there, which both make a lot of sense, I got to imagine other teams would throw their hats in the ring, because you just usually don't see guys like as young, 25 years old, just turned 25, as good as Trey Murphy, become available.
I'm going to throw one name, and it's probably never. I want to be clear. I don't expect it to ever happen, but I would be on the phone call on the phone to call Boston Celtics with Anthony Simons and picks.
That's a great one,
because I think Trey Murphy would make, especially once they do get Tatum back. Like, of course, you're not just looking at this season, but I think if they are truly making Trey Murphy available, if I'm the Boston Celtics, I'm calling and seeing what we can get done, built around Anthony Simons, and which picks that we have are you interested in?
Yeah, and obviously Boston, like, again, still close to the cap, got off an incredible amount of money this past summer. Like, it would be interesting to see if they would be willing to bump that back up. But in terms of a basketball fit, like for a team that more than any other in the NBA, Joe Mazzulla wants to shoot 83s a game if he can. Like Trey Murphy, I think could flourish in that system, and just the collective size of him, Brown, Tatum, like looking at the 26-27 season, that feels crazy to say, around Peyton Pritchard, and they find a center at some point, some way, somehow. That is like or Derek White, excuse me, I guess, instead of Peyton Pritchard. That is a really fun basketball team. I think that's a great call.
Yeah. So we shall see. We shall see what happens with Trey Murphy. Is there anything left, Gavin, before we get up out of here?
No, that's about it. Let's see if the Knicks getting Malik Beasley, man, would be one of the funniest things to ever happen, because Knicks fans hated Malik Beasley. He was shimmying for 6 games. He was talking trash. There was a lot of mocking after he dropped the ball, what would have been a wide open 3 to win game 6. So that would be fun. I would look forward to that in New York.
That would be fun, especially when you guys play the Pistons again. That's already a matchup I'm looking forward to anyway, because I feel like there's something brewing there between those two teams, and I hope that it keeps brewing this upcoming season. But thank you guys for tuning in, man. Make sure you guys go check out Gavin over on Locked On Knicks, where he's talking about the Knicks every single day. You guys can check me out over at Locked On Bulls. Game night is free and available in every podcasting app and platform of your choice, as well as Odyssey, Amazon Fire TV, Roku TV, Fubo TV, and more. We'll see you guys next week. Peace, guys.